So welcome to today's class. Today's class in mathematics, we are going to consider surds. And today we'll be looking at the importance of surds and why surds is so important when it has to do with SS or JAMB question. Now, if you are sitting for JAMB or preparing for JAMB, this class is truly for you. I purposely made this class in order to help you prepare for your JAMB examination. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also inform your friends about this class, as we'll be taking series of topics until the day of your JAMB. And these topics involve taking past questions also related to such topics. So don't forget to subscribe and also remember to always join us in our live class. Most of these videos will be shown on the replay part of this class of the replay of my video, and you see them under the playlist live classes. Now let's look at sword. What truly is sword? Now, whenever we talk about mathematics, we always talk about irrational numbers and we talk about rational numbers. Now, when we talk about rational numbers and irrational number, under which categories do sword falls in? Swords are always numbers that are written in their sword form, And remember, we can only write numbers in their sword form because such numbers cannot be expressed as rational what? As rational numbers. Now, when we say we cannot express such numbers as rational numbers, we can only express them in sword form. So swords are mainly irrational number. And the essence why we are solving swords is to try as much as we can to make such irrational numbers what? Rational. And that is the essence of solving swords. Numbers that cannot be written as a ratio or fractions are what? Are irrational numbers. When we look at numbers that cannot be written as either ratio or fractions, numbers that cannot be written as 2/3, they cannot be written as 2/4 or 6/8. All these are what? Irrational numbers. And that is why such numbers are always represented by 8. Like we have square root of 8, we have square root of 2, we have square root of 10. All these are what? Irrational numbers because they cannot be expressed as a ratio or as a what? Or as a fraction. They are only mostly expressed as the roots of what? Of some rational numbers. Rational numbers can also be 2, 4, 8, 100, and the rest. They are all rational what? Numbers. So irrational numbers can only be expressed as the roots of what? Of rational numbers. Now, what is the main intent of solving solves? As I said earlier on, the main intent of we solving solves is to see how we can make such irrational numbers rational. Now, when solving solves, there are important techniques you are going to look at. There are important techniques you should bear in mind. We are going to consider those techniques as we discuss some of the key points. One of those things when you are dealing with solve is to remember that you always be asked to rationalize what? Solve. Now, rationalizing solve involves you doing what? Rationalizing the what? The denominator. Now, what does rationalizing the denominator mean? When we rationalize the denominator, what do they really mean? The denominator, rationalization of the denominator is done by eliminating the sword in the denominator aspects of that question that is given to you. And that is when you start looking for the conjugate of such sword. Because when you multiply the conjugate of that sword with the original sword, the thing you must note is Whenever you are given a given surd to solve, it can be the surd of 98. You are asked to find the value of the surd of 98. It looks irrational, but to find the value of the surd of 98, you have to look for a perfect square factor of this large number, such that that factor, that square factor can be, we can find the square root of that factor, and the other one will continue to become irrational number. So at the end, you have to multiply that value you've gotten, the square root of that value you've gotten, and the what? And the rational number. So in that case, the closest square root we think about is 49 multiplied by what? By 2. Where this will give us 49 multiplied by the square root of 2. And 49, the square root of 49, you know, will always give you what? 9. So if that gives you 9, and that will be 9 root what? 9 root 2. And that's exactly what you get when you simplify, you find the value of a given source like that. So that aside, the third thing you should bear in mind as a key point, we're going to consider 6 rules that you should consider when you're performing operations on sort. So we want to look at sort operation. Sort operation also involve multiplication, addition, subtraction, and division, etc. Now let's consider some of those things we need to bear in mind when carrying out all these operations in sort. Now, when carrying out operations in sort, what and what should we bear in mind? The first rule is when we are multiplying two sorts. One, when you are asked to multiply a sort like this, you are asked, given that x is multiplying y, and this is a sword. So when these two are multiplying, the rule of sword gives you the option of breaking these two swords. So we can have the sword of 8 multiplied by the sword of y. The rule of sword will multiply really accept that. That is part of the rule of sword. Now, whenever you are given two values multiplying, you can separate them. Now, take for example, if you are given the square root of 32, the square root of 32 can be equal to 32 can give us 2 times 16, right? 2 multiplied by 16. So you have the option of breaking this to become root 16 multiplied by root what? By root 2, where this will give you 4 what? So you see, the sort rule give you the opportunity to do just what? Just that. So you see that 4 there is a perfect square because 4 times 2 can give us what? Can give us 16. So you can easily play around that. The square root of 4, the square root of 16 is what? Is 4. So 4 is the largest perfect square of what? Of 16. So that is exactly what we need to play around with. So whenever we are given that, we should bear in mind that that can easily be what? That can easily be done, and then we'll have the value given to us easily. So you see, that is another option we all can play around with. Now let's look at another perfect square, another thing we can discuss with. If you look at this very well, you can see that this can also be what? This can also be simplified if you care. Some other persons can decide to solve these questions using this technique, that this can easily give me 4 square. This can give me 4 square. I can have my 4 square, right, multiplied by it was 2. And if this clears this will be what? 4 root what? 2. So however way you want to solve that, you should know that the answer will definitely give us 4 root what? 4 root 2. That is it. So that is the first rule I want you to bear in mind. Now let's look at the division of two surds. In that rule too, you might be given a sword like this. You'll be given x divided by y. Now if you are given x divided by y, the rule of sword permits you to what? To separate them divided by the square root of y. So if you separate them, you can easily have that possible. So the rule of sort permits you this. So if you have a value like this, you can separate them. Now the third rule, remember we'll discuss sixth rule. The third rule is the rationalization of the sort by multiplying the denominator and the numerator by the value of the denominator. Now, when we talk about the third rule, we'll be talking about the rationalization of sort. Now, in that regard, you can be given something like x divided by the root of what? Y, and you are asked to solve this. Now, this can only be simplified by rationalizing the what? The denominator of this sort. And if we rationalize this, rationalization means multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the what? By the irrational sort that is at the what? At the denominator. So in this aspect now, this is going to give us x root y divided by y root y times root y is equal to what? Y. And that's exactly what that will give us. Now note that any square root of a value multiplied by that same square root of that value will give us what? Will give us that value. So that is one principle in sword you should also bear in mind when rationalizing sword. Now the fourth rule is when you are giving a sword like this. From that fourth rule, if you are given a sword like this, or x divided by, this time around you have it as a plus b root y. So if you are given a sword like this, how do you do this? Remember, this is where rationalization comes in. So we are going deeper into rationalization of sword. So all you need to do is to multiply both the denominator and the numerator by the conjugate of this sword. And what is the conjugate of this sword? The conjugate of this sword will be a minus b root y. So you are going to multiply the numerator and the denominator of that sword by the what? By the conjugate. And why are we doing that? Because if you multiply this by this, you are simply going to have a rational number. So if you do that, you make the denominator to be what? Rational. And that way you can easily what? Simplify. So whenever you are given any sword like this, all you simply need to do is to multiply the numerator by a minus b with y, and then multiply the denominator b with y, right? Multiply by a minus b what? Y. So if you do this, you are simply going to make the denominator rational. That way you can easily find the what? The LCM, and then you can simplify that sword. So whenever you are given something like this, you can easily work out that and you get your what? And you get your solutions. Now let's look at another rule. What if you are given something like this? X divided by a minus b root 5. In this instance, you have to look for the conjugate of a minus b. And what is the conjugate of a minus b? The conjugate of a minus b, in order to make the denominator rational, is, remember, it will be x multiplied by a plus b root y divided by a minus b root y and a plus b root what? Root y. So if you simplify that, you are going to what? Make the denominator rational. And that way, you find it easy to do what? You find it easy to simplify. Now we're going to also consider the sixth rule. Now, what is the sixth rule? Now, bear in mind the sixth rule that when you are given a sword like this is very important because you see it a lot in your exam question. If you are given a lot like this, a sword like this, x root c, and we either have plus or minus multiplying y root c, as long as this is a plus or minus, then because they have the same rational, irrational swords, we can simply do what? We can easily add this or subtract this and then put the common sword with them. I'll take note of this. This is very important. Now, when this and this comes in, we can easily add these numbers and then with their common sword. But in a case where this sword is different, we will have x root c plus or minus y root b. This cannot be what? This cannot be done like this. So bear that in mind, that this cannot be possible because the what? The roots are not what? They are not the same. So let that sink into our mind that when we multiply sword, when we add and subtract sword like this, two swords can be added or subtracted if they have a common what? A common root. If they don't have a common root, then don't try to multiply or subtract them because that will be moving you towards error. Take note of that. So when we have question like 3 root 2 plus, we have something like this, 4 root 2, then we can easily add these two results, and that will give us what? 7 root what? 2. Now pay attention, and that is very important. So when we have such sort, we can easily simplify, and then that sort will give us 7 root 2. 3 plus 4 will give us what? Will give us 7. Take note of that. Now, the conjugate of a salt are two salts, as I said earlier on, whose products result in a rational what? In a rational number. Now, I'm going to give you a set of salts and their conjugates so that whenever you are given questions like this, you can easily get to know the conjugates of such salt. Because many students used to get confused. Whenever they see salts, they find it very difficult to come to tell the conjugates of such salt. So these tips I'm going to give you is going to help you a lot to get to know the conjugates of what? Of salt, especially as you go for your exams. Now I want you to look at these salts. We'll have salts and then we'll have the what? The conjugates. Now, what are the salts? If you have a salt like root 3 minus root 5, what do you think will be the conjugate? Definitely, the conjugate will be root 3 plus root what? 5. Now, if we have a salt like minus 2 root 7, right? Plus, we'll have a salt like this plus root 3. Now you notice that outside we have a negative, inside we have a plus. What do you think will be the conjugate? The conjugate will be negative 2 root 7 minus root what? Root 3. Take note of that. Because when you multiply these two, you definitely have a rational number. Now, what if we are given 3 minus 2 root 2? What do you think the conjugate will be? The conjugate will be 3 plus 2 root what? 2. Take note of that. It's also very important. What if we have the square root of a plus b? What do you think the conjugate will be? When this happens, some students will get confused. Now, some students will now look at the conjugate to be a minus b, square root of a minus b, but it's so sad to say that the conjugate will be what? A plus what? B. Because when you multiply these two, you are going to have a rational number. Now, when we have a minus b, the conjugate will also be what? A minus what? B. So if you have a solve where they give you x divided by square root of a minus b, please don't say this will be equal to x multiplied by the square root of x a plus b. It is absolutely what? Wrong. Don't do that. Rather, you cannot be able to easily simplify that. Rather, it should be what? X multiplied by the square root of a minus b, all divided by the square root of a minus b multiplied by a square root of what? A minus b. Now, if you see that if you multiply these two, you're definitely going to have a rational number because a minus b is simply a to the power of 2. If we multiply both of them by a minus b to the power of half, we come to see that if you multiply these two, we're going to have a rational what? A rational number. So whenever you are asking or solving question on solve, take note of these, especially these and what and these. So whenever you are giving square root of 3 minus 2, don't take their conjugates as what? As 3 plus 2. The conjugate is not 3 plus 2 because this multiplied by this cannot give you a rational what? A rational number. So I want you to take note of this. There are key points you need to bear in mind as you solve questions under sorts. I believe these are the key points we need to discuss as we discuss this topic also. So, having these key points in mind, the next thing we want us to do now is to solve questions under past questions under sorts. Now we are going to consider the first question. In the first question, sample 1, we are asked to simplify. We are asked to simplify root 98 minus root 50 divided by root 32. Now, when we are given this, how do we find this? Remember, whenever you are giving sorts like this, I said it through my introductory part, you have to look for the highest perfect square factors, in which once you find the square root, they will give you rational what? Numbers. And then we are going to look for the highest perfect square of 98, 50, and we have 98, 50, and 32. Now for 98, the perfect square is what? 49. Now what about 50? We are talking about 50, we are talking of 25. And for 32, we are talking about 16. Because 16 times 2 will give us 32. 25 times 2 will give us 50. 49 times 2 will give us what? 98. So having gotten the highest perfect square factors, all you need to do is to apply the rules using one of the rules we have discussed, and then you find the solution to your question. Now let's do that. We'll have this to be become the square root of 49 multiplied by 2 minus the square root of 25 multiplied by 2 divided by the square root of 16 multiplied by 2. So that is going to give us the square root of 49 multiplied by the square root of 2 minus the square root of 25 multiplied by the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 16 multiplied by the square root of 2. So what would that give us? That would give us 9 root 2 minus 5 root 2, and square root of 16 is 4 root what? So remember, as long as the roots are same, we can either add or subtract this kind of sort. So if you do that, we're going to have 9 minus 5. That will give us 4 root 2 divided by 4 root what? 2. So if you divide 4 root 2 and 4 root 2, what are we going to get? This is going to give us, no, this is square root of 49 is what? Is 7. Sorry about that. Square root of 49 is going to give us 7. I didn't get that right. So this is going to give us 7 minus 5. 7 minus 5 is going to give us what? 2. So we're going to have 2 root what? 2 root 5. Now 2 root what? 2 root 5. 2 root 2 divided by 2 root 2. Now, if you look at this, 2 can go here 1. This can go here to give us 2. So this will give us root 2 divided by 2 root what? 2 root 2. And that will be the final part of our answer. Now, if you check your option and that answer is not there, that means you need to do what? You need to rationalize. Now, if you rationalize that, we are going to rationalize root 2. I will multiply this by 2 root 2 divided by 2 root 2 multiplied by 2 root what? Root 2. So since these two have the same root, 2 times root times root, remember, root 2 times root 2 will give us 2. So the upper part will give us what? 4, right? So this is 2 times 2 will give us 4, right? And then we'll have what? We'll have root 2 times root 2 will give us what? 2. So we'll have 4 divided by 4 times 2 is 8. So if 2 goes here, it gives us 2. 2 goes here to give us 4. 1 here, 1. 2 here, 1. And 2 here will give us 2. So our result will be 1 divided by what? Divided by 2. So you see, that's exactly how you can break this down to get your solution. Now, if you check your options and this is not there, that means you need to do what? You need to rationalize. Rationalization simply means you multiply the denominator and the numerator by what? By the denominator, which is what? Which is a surd, an irrational number. So when you do that, you're going to find out that the denominator gave us what? A rational number. And then we can easily what? Simplify. So you see, solving question under sorts can be very, very easy. And I know you understand what we discussed. The last time we discussed, Olayemi or something, Olayinka asked a question. Olayinka, if you really come on our life again, don't forget to drop that your question. I couldn't get that your question so that we can answer that question. Now let's look at the second sample. In the second sample, we are asked to what? We are asked to simplify. We are asked to simplify root 2 minus root 3, and we are asked to divide that by root 3 root 2 plus root what? 3. Now, if you look at that question very well, you will come to see that this question requires that we find the conjugate of the surd, because the only way we can rationalize this is to find the conjugate of the denominator. Now, the conjugate of root 3 plus root 3, remember, it will be what? Root 2 minus root what? 3. Because we multiply this by what? By root 2 plus root 3, we are simply going to get a rational what? A rational number. So let's solve that. So that means we are going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of that one. So this is going to give us 2 root 2 minus root 2 root 3 multiplied by root 2 plus root 3 and all divided by root 2 plus root 3 multiplied by root 2 plus root 3. So if we simplify that, you're going to see that the denominator will now give us a rational what? A rational number. So how do we simplify that? We'll just simplify that. Remember that root 2 times root 2 is simply going to give us 2. And root 3 times root 3 is simply going to give us 3. So if we simplify that, that denominator will simply give us what? That denominator will simply give us 2. This is what? This is negative. It's just like you having a difference of 2 squared. It will definitely give us 2 minus what? Minus 3. So that is going to give us just 2 minus 3, right? Because if you still multiply this and multiply all this, at the end, root 2 times root 2 will give you 2. Root 2 times negative root 2 will give you negative 6. At the end, this negative will clear positive 6, and then we'll still be left with what? With 2 root what? Root 3. So it's going to give us 2 minus 3. While if we do this, we are going to have this to give us 2. Root 2 times root 2 is going to give us 2. 2 times 2 will give us 4, right? Root 2 times this will give us what? Plus 2 root what? Root 6, right? That's what it's going to give us. Then this other one will give us what? Minus. This times this will give us root 6. Then this times this will give us minus what? Minus 3, right? So that is exactly what it will give us. So if we simplify this, we're going to have 4 minus 3 will give us 1. This minus this, remember 1 is here, so 2 minus 1 is going to give us 1. So we are going to have, simply going to have 1 plus what? This is what? This times this, right? Minus times plus is going to give us what? Minus. So root 3 times root 3 is going to give us what? It's going to give us it's going to give us 3. Fine. This times this gives us this. This times this gives us this. This times this gives us this. This times this will give us what? This. So this minus this is going to give us 1, right? So we'll have 1 plus with what? 6 divided by 1. So the solution is just simply going to give us 1 plus what? Plus root 6. And that will be the solution to that question. Because 1 plus root 6 divided by 1 plus root 6 divided by 1 is still going to give us what? 1. So you see, that's exactly how you solve question like this, and you get the solution to your answer. Now, when you are multiplying sort, I want you to be very careful, because if you are not careful, you make series of what? You make series of mistakes, which is very, very important. Now, let's consider the third and final question. In the third and final question, we are asked to what? We are asked to rationalize this. Let's look at the third and final question. The fourth question is simply has to do with the same thing we've done in the second question. So let's look at this third and final question. In this question, we are asked to simplify root 2 minus 1 divided by root 3, right? And we are asked to multiply it by root 2 minus 1 divided by root 3. Why this is plus, the other one is what? The other one is minus. Now, if you look at this question very well, you see that for you to say simply simplify this, you need to rationalize fractions with what? With what? With sword denominators. Now we have fractions that have swords as their denominator, irrational numbers as their denominator, and that is what? 1 divided by root what? Root 3. So we are going to rationalize that part to give us a rational number, and then we can now simplify, because we have to make all the denominators to be what? Rational. So if we have 1 divided by root 3 multiplied by 3 divided by root 3. So this will simply give us root 3 divided by 3. So we've made it what? Rational. So that means I can simply simplify this by putting this into that expression. Root 3 plus 3 root 3 divided by 3 multiplied by root 2 minus root 3 divided by 3. So that will make the expression easy to what? To play around with. That can make it rational. Remember, this can also be written as 1, and this can be written as 1. So if we simplify this is going to give us 3, right? And this will give us 3 divided by 1 is 3 times root 2 will give us 3 root 2 plus 3 divided by 3 is 1 times root 3, that will give us root 3, right? This will be multiplied by 3, right? 3 divided by 1 is 3 root 2 minus root what? 3. So we can easily multiply these two. So if we multiply those two, we can easily get what? Our values. If we multiply these two, we can easily get our values. We can still go ahead to find the denominator. The denominator can still give us what? 3. Denominator can still give us what? 9. 3 times 3 will give us what? 9, right? So 3 times 3 will give us 9. So we'll multiply this. This times this will give us 3 times 3 will give us 9. 9 multiplied by root 3 times root 2 will give us what? That is going to give us 2. Root 2 times root 2 will give us 2. Now you note that this times this is going to give us what? That will give us 3 what? Minus 3 root what? 6. This times this is going to give us what? Plus 3 root 6. And this times this is going to give us what? Minus. Minus times plus is minus. Minus what? 3. Now you see that this times this is going to give us 9. Root 3 times root 3 will give us 2. So if we simplify that, we're simply going to have that to give us 9 times 2 is going to give us 18 minus, this is simply going to clear this. And then we have 18 minus 3 divided by what? 9. That's all. So this will be equal to 18 minus 3 is what? 15 divided by 9. So 15 divided by 9, if 3 goes here, it gives us 3. 3 will go here to give us 5. And that will give us 5 divided by 3. Now there is a way we go about multiplying uh, two rational or two surds like this. All we need to do is just like we are. If you can do this, you have 3 root 2 all squared minus root what? Root 3 what? Squared. Remember, if you do this, you're simply doing this and this multiply. So if you do this, you're going to get 18 minus what? Minus 3. So whenever you are given this, all you need to do is just square this and square this, and then subtract what comes out of them. And that is it. So the solution we are going to have is 5 divided by what? By 3. And that is exactly the solution. So if you are given this and this to multiply this, in order to save time, just square the first and square the second and subtract them. That's all. Because it's more of you having a difference of two what? Difference of 2 square. So that is the point I want you to note. Now I'm going to give you like 2 questions. I want you to try this question, and if you are able to drop your answers, let's see your answers in the comment section. Don't forget to drop your answers in the comment section. Now let's look at these few questions I want you to try. In the first questions, we are asked to simplify We are asked to simplify 6 plus 2 squared, right, minus root 6 minus 2 all squared. So you're asked to simplify that. We're also asked to simplify this, just 2 questions. You're asked to simplify this, you're asked to rationalize, you're asked to not rationalize 2 minus root 5 divided by 3 minus root what? Root 5. So solve those 2 questions, and if you succeed in solving them, they are all JAMB UTME question. If you succeed in solving them, this is a JAMB UTME question 2001, 2011, and this is JAMB UTME question 2012. If you succeed in solving these 2 questions, then you should be preparing well for your JAMB examination. So solve those 2 questions and let me get your answers in the comment section. I want to drop this question to you. It seems very interesting. Now the question says, if number 3, if x1 plus root 2 divided by 1 minus root 2 is expressed in the form, very tricky question, x plus y root 2, you're asked to find what? X and what? And y. I love that question. You're asked to find the value of x and y. So you have to solve this using rationalization. So if you can be able to solve this, you can find the value of x and y. And this question is JAMB UTME question 2013. JAMB UTME question 2013. This is JAMB UTME 2013. That's the question that's given to you in JAMB UTME 2013. So try to solve these questions and see if you can get the solutions to this question. If you do, then I'll really appreciate what the effort you've put so far in those questions. In our next class, we'll be considering, we've done sort, so we'll be looking at sets, and that will be the last topic on numbers and numeration. So we'll look at sets, although sets is a very large topic, but we are going to just pick some important points on that set. And then we'll go to section 2 of your syllabus, which is what? The algebra. And the first part we'll be taking is polynomials. So I want us to look at how we'll consider that, and then we'll discuss that more. If you come online, I truly appreciate the effort you've made so far coming online to join us on our live stream. And I want to say thanks to you. I look forward to seeing you join our live stream in the next class. Thanks so much for watching, and bye-bye.